As students in the Cosmic faculty, you're going through your final exam of creating the evolution of civilization in Civolution.
And today we'll be teaching you how to play Civolution, game designed by Stefan Feld and published by Deep Print Games and Pegasus Spiele.
And hello everyone, it's Stella.
And Tarrant from Meeple University.
Alright, hey, if you enjoyed this video, you'll really help us by liking it. Maybe later, after the video, let us know what you think and subscribe. Like, seriously, that would help us to bring more videos. Okay, now let's go to the classroom.
Civolution is a Euro-style civilization building game in which players compete to expand, develop, and upgrade their civilizations to score the most success points, indicated by this icon, over 4 eras of play. There is a lot going on in this game, and so I'm going to dive very quickly into the gameplay with only minimal scene setting. Everything you need to know I'll explain in full as I introduce it. Note as well that ordinary setup contains a number of drafts and choices to determine your starting resources and cards and so forth, but for your first game the rulebook lets you use setup cards to take all your starting components without making any choices or having any prior knowledge. So with that, let's get into it. This board is called the continent. This is the game's map and it's where expansion and building will occur. On the board to the right you have the phase tracker, where you'll track the different phases of each era, and this section which mostly covers end of era events, effects and scoring. On the left board you have the game's progress tracks, some markets of tiles and chips and other things you can gain through the game, and beside it the decks of the 5 different research card types: inventions, mutations, insight, buildings and achievements. At the bottom of the left board are the main scoring categories. There are some ways of scoring points through the game, but most of your points are going to come from these 9 categories. Based on the placement of these tiles, 3 of the 9 will be worth more than their standard amount, and 4 of the 9 will also figure in end-of-era intermediate scoring. 5 of the 9 categories relate to progress on these tracks. There's one for the evolutionary features of your species, one for prosperity, which is resources, money and buildings, one for how much population you have on the map, and one for how widely you spread them around the map. Each player has a large player board called the console. On the right hand side you'll find all of your actions, and on the left you'll find your buildings and storage for resources. Throughout the game, all of your resources are represented by these player-coloured markers. So a marker in the clay box is clay. These markers represent food, money, focus, and so on. You're limited to 50 markers, and if you ever run out, then you can take one from anywhere unless it's not representing a resource at the time. You begin with 7 dice. A pink fate die, which will be used to resolve random actions in the game, and 6 white dice, one of each number, placed on their matching dice spaces, and you'll be using these to select actions. You have 20 tribe pieces, 2 of which begin on the continent. Finally, there's a large blank area above your console referred to as your stage partition. This is a place where you'll build a tableau of cards and chips through the game, and this is the 10th major source of final scoring. The partition begins empty and you start with a hand of 5 cards. Civolution plays over 4 eras, and each era plays over 8 phases. 3 preliminary phases which serve as setup for the round, the actions phase which is the bulk of the game, and 4 end-of-era phases representing upkeep and intermediate scoring. Phase 1 is new cards. Flip the top card of the event deck face up. This tells you what weather conditions and end-of-round effect will occur in Phase 7, the event phase. Then flip a new card face up from each of the 5 research decks to its discard pile, covering any still present from prior eras. Phase 2 is new goals. On the left board you'll find a market of gold chips with size depending on your player count. Starting from the first player and going clockwise, each player has 1 turn to either choose an available gold chip or pass. Anytime you gain a gold chip, place it face up into one of the 3 gold chip slots on your console. You'll usually pick an empty one, but you don't have to. Once all players have had their turn to take or pass, refill the empty slots from the bag. Phase 3 is extra find, and for this we need to know a little bit more about the continent. The continent is made up of sites and territories. The sites are these face-down octagonal pieces, as well as this pre-printed island, and those are not relevant to this phase. The 22 coloured areas are called territories. This includes 4 water territories and 18 land territories, 3 each in 6 different types. There may be adjacent territories of the same type. This is 2 deserts, not 1 large desert. On your player console, you have these 18 spaces for different stored resources, and they're colour-coded and arranged according to the type of territory which produces them. But you won't know which territory produces which stored goods until that territory has been settled and developed. This starting forest produces wood, but it won't be till later in the game that you'll discover which of the other forests produces wax and which produces oil. The extra find phase of the era is an opportunity to gain a stored good which hasn't yet been discovered. In this phase, in turn order, each player chooses any single territory where they currently have at least 1 tribe. Then gain any one of the 3 stored goods produced by that territory type. Don't get used to having this level of flexibility. This phase is by far the easiest and cheapest way to gain a resource which hasn't yet been developed. Phase 4 is the action phase. The action phase plays in turns, starting from the first player and going clockwise round the table. On your turn you have 2 options, action or reset. If you choose action, choose one of the 22 actions available to you on the right hand side of your console, spending the dice cost printed on that action by moving dice from your dice area to below your board. For example, to take the migration action, I would have to spend a 1 and a 3. Each of the 21 possible 2 die combinations corresponds to a specific action, and there's also the sleep action which you can take by spending any 2 dice. These 15 actions above your dice spaces are called modules, and each can be upgraded to become more powerful twice during the game. For the first upgrade, flip the module tile over, and for the second, discard it. Your second option is reset. This has 3 steps. First, advance the phase tracker. Second, re-roll your white dice, returning them to their dice spaces. And do note, if you reset while you still have white dice available, you choose whether or not you re-roll those leftovers. And third, convert the marker from this column into either an idea or a food. The length of the action phase is set by the number of resets collectively completed by all players, and the allowable number varies depending on your player count. In this 3-player example, the end of the action phase is triggered the 7th time a player takes a reset. To prevent a player from speeding the game along, you're not allowed to reset if you have more than 3 dice on your dice spaces. Once the end has been triggered, keep playing until all players have had the same number of turns this action phase, and then each player takes 1 more turn. And if anyone resets after this trigger, simply don't move the marker. Overall, you should expect to take about 10 turns in each action phase. Now I'm going to take you through all of the game's actions. I'm going to group them by type, and that means I'm often going to jump around from one part of the board to another, interchange between the upgraded and non-upgraded versions of the actions, and often describe the 2 different options that a module provides at completely different times. The actions you can take are very much limited by the dice you roll, so first I'll take you through actions for dice mitigation. The Insight module is one of many ways to gain ideas. Here you would gain 3 ideas. An idea can be spent when you're placing a die to modify its value up or down by 1, and you can wrap around between 6s and 1s. As such, if I now wanted to take insight again, one way to do this would be to spend 2 ideas, turning this 4 into a 6 to spend these dice, or just a single idea to turn this 1 into a 6. You can gain planning markers. An action like this lets you choose any one of the 6 dice spaces and place 2 of your markers onto it. This upgraded one would let you place 3 markers on a single space. A marker on a die space counts as a die of that number. So I could, for example, spend these to take the sustenance action. You can also adjust them with ideas. This idea to move this 2 to a 3, before spending these to take planning. Just note that these planning markers are single use as dice. This would go back to my marker supply. Only the physical dice get re-rolled at a reset. Planning markers don't count as dice for the purposes of the reset requirement. Here I am allowed to reset even though there's 4 total pieces in my dice spaces. The last option at your disposal is focus. Focus counts as a flexible planning action. That is, you can collect your focus resources and then at any time move it to the die space of your choice. The sleep action, remember this is your all-purpose action you can activate with any pair of dice, is your main way to get focus. You can use this action for 1 focus or 2 ideas. Next I'll cover expansion actions, and this is how you place and move your tribes around the map. A tribe in the game can be in 2 states. Strong, meaning it's standing up, and that's represented by this standing Meeple icon, and weak, meaning it's lying down. This is represented by this lying Meeple icon. When you see this icon showing the Meeple from the waist up, this can mean a strong or a weak tribe. The migration action lets you move a strong tribe on the continent. Choose a strong tribe and move it to any adjacent land territory. So this tribe could move to one of these 4 territories, but not into water. Territories are not adjacent across a site. Having moved, that tribe must now settle into an encampment space in the new territory. You can freely choose among the empty and full encampments whether they're filled with your own tribe or another player's. If you choose an empty encampment, simply place your tribe there. If you choose a full encampment, you displace the tribe that was there into the wilderness. Move that tribe so that it's no longer on the encampment, and place your own tribe in its place, but weaken it. Regardless of how it got there, if your newly placed tribe is on a fire encampment, which will show a number of points, gain those points immediately. Finally, if you've just settled an undeveloped territory, that is one where this token is still face down, you now develop that territory. Place one of your markers in that region, and then flip the token face up. These markers are called raw resources, and we'll learn a little bit about that when we get to the production actions. With procreation, you can gain new tribes. Here you gain 1 strong tribe, and settle it in a territory where you already have at least 1 tribe, strong or weak. This follows standard settling rules, so I could weaken it and push a tribe into the wilderness to gain the fire points. Weak tribes have disadvantages, including that they score less, they're at higher risk of death, and they can't take certain actions including migration. You can make one of your weak tribes strong again by taking a strengthen action. So here I would strengthen 1 weak tribe, standing it up in place. As you upgrade your expansion actions, you'll be able to take these actions more times on a single turn. When you do this, you can always spread the actions among different territories. Here, for example, procreating into 2 different territories, or 2 into the same territory. When you migrate multiple times, you can spend them on any combination of tribes from or to the same or different territories. However, if you spent multiple migrations on the same tribe, resolve settlement only in the final destination. These actions also show us our first examples of actions requiring a roll of the pink fate die to resolve. The pink icon with the face on it denotes a favour roll, and this is a pass or fail roll. In this case, based on my result, if I pass, I would get 3 migrations. If I failed, I would get 2. To make a favour roll, roll your fate die, and you may optionally adjust the result up or down by 1 by spending ideas, again including wrapping around between 6s and 1s. To pass, you must roll equal or below your position on the favour of a Jera track, and you'll increase on here anytime you resolve one of these star icons. Any other icon which shows the pink square is also resolved with a roll of the fate die, however these will not be pass-fail results. Hunting, for example, would have you consult the hunting table and gain the result based on your roll. You begin the game with 6 white dice and a pink one, and this action on the achievement module is how you gain more. With this action, it's 1 extra die of either colour, while once you've upgraded, it lets you get an extra die of both colours. When you gain new dice, take them from the market at the top of the left board if available. A newly gained white die is rolled immediately and added to its section of your board, while a newly gained pink die is added to your pool. On all future fate rolls, you'll roll all of your pink dice and then choose 1 die to resolve, using ideas only on that chosen die if you wish. The pool of extra dice is very limited. There's only 1 more of each type than the player count. And once the pool is empty, any action to gain new dice results in stealing them from the player with the most of that type of die. Here, if yellow gained a pink die, it would come from blue. And here, if blue gained a pink die, it would come from red. If the pool is empty and you have more than every other player, you can't gain another. Here, blue cannot gain another pink die. If one of your white dice is stolen, hand it over from your discards. And if you have no discards when your die is stolen, you choose which to give up. Next, we'll talk about the exploitation actions. In Civilization and 4X terms, that means extracting resources from the continent. We've already seen one way to get raw resources on the map, and that's to develop a previously unsettled territory. The left half of the production module is the other main way to do this. Here, for example, I produce 3 times, and so I take 3 of my markers and place them as raw resources in any combination into territories where I currently have tribes, strong or weak. There must currently be a tribe present. Here I have raw resources present, but no tribe, so I could not produce in this wood forest. Raw resources are of no use by themselves. You need to take the transport action, shown here or here, to bring them back as stored goods that you can spend. This action is to transport 3, and for each one, choose any one of your raw resources from the board, whether there's a tribe present in that territory or not, and place that marker into your console as the resource matching that territory. You can transport the same or different resources with each of your transport actions within a single turn. There's no limit to how many of any given stored material you can hold. And the transport module, once upgraded, gets to the point of transporting all resources at once. Another type of resource is food, and you'll need this for feeding your tribes. And hunting is one of the major ways to gain food. Here you'd hunt once, here you'd hunt twice. For each hunt, choose a territory where you have at least 1 tribe, strong or weak. Mark it with a hunt token. This means neither you nor any other player may hunt again in that territory this era. Roll with your fate dice, following the rules described before. Consult the table for your result and type of territory, and gain the corresponding amount of food. This half of the exploration module lets you make 1 or 2 lucky finds. For each of them, Choose a territory where you have at least one tribe, strong or weak, and this time you can choose the same territory multiple times. Make a fate roll, and gain one stored material corresponding to the result. This is another way to gain a type of resource which is yet to be discovered. But since it's a lucky find, you have less control over it than you had over the extra find at the start of the round. The last actions in this section are sale and purchase. By activating this module, you would get to do one of each. A single sale lets you exchange two stored resources, one for money and one for points. The one you exchange for money will be worth 1, 2, or 3 money depending on its row. So for example, I sell this oil for 3 money. The one I sell for points is worth 2 points regardless of its row. Then for each purchase action you take, you may buy a single stored material, and the cost of this is 2 money if that material has already been developed, or 4 money if it has not. This action is your other main way of gaining a stored resource before it's been developed. Upgrading the module first gives you 2 sales and 2 purchases, and then gives you the same plus a bonus 2 coins. The next thing I'm going to talk about is your stage partition. This is an area where you're going to be building up a big tableau from a combination of 5 different types of cards and 3 different types of chips. I'm first going to take you through how you gain each of those 8 different types of cards and chips. Then I'll explain everything you need to know about building them into the partition. First, I'll talk about features and attributes, and these relate to the evolutionary progression of your species. At any given time, there'll be a market of 3 attribute chips on the left board, and each of them has a cost and requirement in features. Features are these 6 slots at the bottom of your board. Each of them has an action triggered by doubles. So for example, activating double 1s would give me 1 stamina. This half of the mutation module gives you the flexibility to change your features. In this case, I take any one of my existing features and move it to any other. Upgrading the module lets you do this multiple times. As soon as you have the combination of features shown on one of these attributes, then you may claim it from the market as a free action on your turn. Here, for example, have 3 stamina and spend 1 of them. Immediately replenish the chip from the bag and add your required chip to the partition. Next is the 5 different types of research cards. To get these in your partition, you first need to draw them to your hand and then play them from your hand. The main way to gain new cards is to take the research action, and this either lets you gain cards or draw cards. This would be gain 1 or draw 1 out of 2, while this one would be gain 2 or draw 2 out of 4. When you gain a card, add it to your hand from the top of a deck or the top of a discard pile, always immediately refilling a discard pile with the top card of a deck if it's empty. While when you draw that many cards from the top of the same or different decks, look at them, choose the ones you wish to add to your hand, and return the others to the bottoms of their decks. Playing a card, also known as installing it, requires you to activate one of these 5 right-hand side actions with the colour corresponding to the type of card you're playing. To play a card, go through these steps. First, activate the appropriate module. Second, determine which stage of your partition you'll be building the card into. Again, more on the particulars later, but this would be stage 1, this would be stage 2, this would be stage 3, and so on. Pay or meet a number of cost boxes from left to right equal to the stage. This could come by paying stored resources. Black powder, for example, would cost me 1 coal if I were building it at stage 1. It would be a coal and a salt if I were building it at stage 2, and a coal, a salt, and a brimstone at stage 3. The cost may involve having a number of features. The beak at stage 1 or 2 would require me to have 2 expressiveness. These are cumulative, so at stage 3 or above, I'd need 3 expressiveness. In rare cases, you may also need to pay features. For this card at stage 3, I'd need 1 composure, 2 expressiveness, and to pay 1 intelligence. Many of the game's building cards also get cheaper once you've built settlement buildings on the board, represented by this icon. In this case, the costs aren't cumulative. 3 settlements would be enough to fulfill both of the first 2 costs. Having met the costs, gain any points in the boxes you paid for. So if I gained black powder at stage 2, I'd get 2 points. At stage 3, I'd get 4 points. You may choose to overpay the next costs in sequence to gain the points if you wish. So for example, install black powder at stage 1, but pay it to stage 2 for 2 points. You must pay each stage in sequence. I couldn't, for example, pay just the coal and brimstone to install this in stage 1 for 2 points. I'd have to pay the salt as well. Next, if the card you're installing has an immediate effect in the lower half, gain that effect now, and then install the card in such a way that only the top third of the card remains visible. Once you've upgraded these modules to level 3, the action allows you to install 2 cards of the same type, or 1 card with a 1 cost discount. Ignore any 1 cost box in its entirety, including the points you would have gained. You must pay at least 1 cost box and can't use this effect to play a card for free. Next is gold chips. There are 2 similar icons related to gold chips. This one is to gain a gold chip, and this one is to complete a gold chip. Gaining a gold chip from an action is the same as gaining one in the new goals phase. You choose one from the market, add it to a full or empty gold chip slot on your board, and replenish from the bag. When you complete a gold chip, choose one of your visible chips whose requirements you meet. Some require paying a stored resource, others require meeting a condition, such as having 2 intelligence, or having 2 tribes in either the same or different mountains. Whatever the case, remove the chip you complete and add it to your partition. If the chip you complete was bottom of its stack and reveals this icon, you can now immediately upgrade 1 module in your console. So now, building your partition. Your partition has 9 columns plus a header. And it has 5 main rows of different lengths called stages. You can also keep building into the 6th stage and above if you wish. Each of the 7 things we just spoke about, so that's the 5 card types, the gold chips and the attribute chips, must have a column of its own, and you determine which column that's going to be the first time you install that type of card or chip. So I've installed an achievement card in this column. All future achievement cards must also be installed in that column, and none of the other 6 types can be installed there. You don't need to fill stage 1 before going to higher stages. As soon as I get this attribute chip, I could go straight to installing it in the shorter stage 3 column if I wished. I could even choose to install my first card of a certain type over here in column 9, where it begins in stage 5. Gold chips are slightly different in that they fit 2 abreast within a column, and you can choose to fill both halves of a column before going to the next one, or you can just keep stacking them one on top of the other. Either way, that double wide column is now reserved for gold chips. Some cards, as well as all gold chips, have no further effect once they're in your partition. Some have passive abilities which are always in effect. And if it features this red axe icon, it means it's an aggressive effect, allowing you to target your opponents. An effect with this icon is an activity, and to resolve it you need this icon. The activity module is the main way to do this, letting you activate 1 activity, 2 different activities, or any 2 activities. You also have this pre-printed activity available from the start. Cards with this yellow icon have endgame scoring objectives. Each of the first 2 stages has a reward when you complete it. When you finish stage 1, gain an income chip and resolve it immediately. You choose any one chip from the income chip market on the left board, replenishing from the white bag, resolve its effect, so here it's transporting, strengthening, or gaining 1 point, always an option on an income chip, and install it in your partition. Unlike the other 7 card and chip types, income chips can be placed wildly. That means I can add them to the next space in a column which has a different type of chip in it, without changing that column's identity, or I could add it to a new column, or even to a column full of income chips. Since everything here is an income chip, this is technically still an unassigned column, and I could play my first blue card there in stage 6 if I wished. The only place you're not allowed to place an income chip is on top of an incomplete row of gold chips. This would not be legal, but this would be. There are several other ways to gain income chips which we'll see as we go along. In addition to resolving them immediately, you resolve them in the income phase at the end of each era, and one each time you get this icon which you'll find on the invention module. You begin the game with a card slotted under your 9th column, which counts as an income chip for all purposes. Cards and chips in your partition are worth points at the end of the game based on their stage. 2 points for stage 1, so this would be 2, 4, 6 points. 3 for stage 2, so this would be 3, and 4 for stage 3, so this would be 8 points. Stages 4 and 5 are worth 7 and 10 points respectively, but those scores begin the game inactive. To flip one over, making it active, you'll need to unlock one of these icons, and completing stage 2 of your partition is one way to get one. You can build above stage 5, but there are never any points to activate for doing so. Next we'll talk about sites. Remember there are 25 sites on the continent. This island building ground, which starts visible, and these 24 face-down pieces. To reveal sites, someone must first explore them with this action. Choose a territory where you have at least one tribe, strong or weak, and then reveal all face-down sites adjacent to that territory. Score the points in the top left corners of each site you revealed. Generally speaking, the more dangerous the site, the more you'll score. With this module upgraded, then in addition to everything I just said, also gain the printed points and reveal one more site with your telescope, meaning that site can be anywhere on the continent. Sites are not like territories. Tribes are never allowed to migrate into them. However, tribes can interact with or be impacted by sites adjacent to their territories. Pairs of caves provide pathways for migration. All territories adjacent to caves are considered adjacent to each other. So red could make this migration. For a holy rock, when you activate your procreation module, perform a favour roll for each holy rock. And if you succeed at the roll, then you can also procreate in a territory adjacent to that rock, provided you have a tribe there. For a hidden grotto, when you activate your production module, you also get to produce and transport from a territory containing one of your tribes adjacent to each hidden grotto, and hunting in a territory adjacent to a mushroom valley always yields one additional food. I'll explain all of the rest as we go along, but one that's important to know about now is the building ground, as this feeds into our next action, building. This basic module lets you build one building. Upgraded, it lets you produce 2 matching buildings, and then any 2 buildings. There are 4 types of buildings: settlements, farms, boats, and statues. And do note, there was a production error with the first release of the game. I've borrowed these settlement pieces from a different game. Building a farm has no extra resource cost. Simply take the farm and place it in the empty farm space of any one territory containing one of your tribes, strong or weak. I can't place here as I have no tribe, and I can't place here as the farm space is full. You also cannot build a farm in a territory that is adjacent to a volcano. And when revealed, the volcano destroys adjacent farms, returning them to the owner's console. After building a farm, gain an idea, and farms are going to help to feed your local tribes at the end of the era. Settlements are expensive, but they're a key way of increasing the income and prosperity of your civilization. You can build your settlements in any order. Pay the cost and place the settlement on a building ground site adjacent to at least one of your tribes. This uncovers some diamonds, which counts towards prosperity scoring and lets you immediately gain and activate a new income chip. If you get all 4 out, also activate stage 4 or 5 of your partition. You can build a statue also on a building ground. Choose a building ground adjacent to a tribe, pay the cost, and then place the marker onto the building ground as the statue. This has 2 benefits. First, increase 1 step on the progress track of your choice. We haven't seen these for a while, despite being one of the main ways of scoring points in the game. But these are pretty conventional Eurogame tracks. You'll move up them as you gain the icons. And in addition to building statues, installing cards is often a good way to move up these tracks. You gain the bonus every time one of your markers crosses this white line, which is a good way of getting some early module upgrades, while noting that you have to choose a module which matches the colour you're gaining. While near the tops of the tracks is another way of gaining stage 4 or 5 of your partition. Statues also score points at the end of every era, with the points increasing as you move up on the favour track. Building grounds aren't competitive, but each player is limited to at most 2 statues, or 1 settlement and 1 statue per building ground. The last thing you can build is a boat. When you do this, take a boat, as well as the resource marker on it, place it into a water territory adjacent to any one of your tribes, weak or strong, and then optionally, if you have an adjacent strong tribe, migrate it to the boat. There can be 1 boat per player per water territory, and multiple players can occupy the same territory. Boats open up many new opportunities. A strong tribe can migrate onto one of the 2 empty spaces of its boat, or off the boat to an adjacent land territory. You can procreate on a boat if you have an empty space. A boat is constructed with a raw resource already on it. And if you produce when your boat is occupied and empty, you can use one of your produce actions to add a raw resource to it. When you transport off the boat, you can treat that resource as being any one of the goods types in an adjacent developed territory. Or with the level 3 transport module, treat it as any stored goods type at all, whether it's developed or not. A tribe on a boat can now hunt the water territory, which is by far the most lucrative type of territory to hunt. And if your boat is in this specific water territory, then tribes on it now have access to build in this pre-printed building ground. With the exception of farms destroyed by volcanoes, all buildings are permanent and cannot be moved once constructed. Once the end of the action phase is triggered, continue playing until all players have had the same number of turns this action phase, and then play 1 more turn each. Leave your console as it is. You don't get a free reset between eras. Wherever your dice are now is where they'll start the next action phase. You'll now proceed to the end of era phases, starting with phase 5, the site phase. These 3 types of sites are resolved. First, Gorge of the Grimwolves. For each gorge where you have 1 or more tribes in adjacent territories, discard 1 food if able. This is 1 food per gorge, not per tribe. Then is Glaciers. Each player must weaken 1 strong tribe adjacent to each glacier, if able. Then resolve Mystic Oaks. Each player scores points for the territory, if they have 1 or more tribes in it, for each territory adjacent to each Mystic Oak. Here yellow scores all 3, blue scores these 2, and red scores this 1. Oaks score 2 points for Water Swamp and Desert, and 1 for each other type. Now proceed to feeding. You must feed every tribe you have on the board. A tribe in an encampment or on a boat requires 1 food. A tribe in the wilderness requires 2 food. Food cost is reduced by 1 for a tribe in a territory with its player's farm. For the 3 territories you can see here, yellow has a food cost of 1. That's the tribe on the boat with these 2 fed from the farm. Blue has a cost of 3, all tribes in encampments with no farms. And red's cost is 1. This one eats free, and this one usually requires 2 in the wilderness, reduced to 1 by the farm. Pay all required food from your console. For each point of shortage, either weaken a strong tribe or kill a weak tribe. Now score 1 point per remaining strong tribe. Next, resolve the event phase. Move the weather marker based on the current event card. Here I'd move it up 1 space, or for this card I'd move it down 2 spaces. If the weather's in the happy medium area, players will get to resolve an income or an activity. But if it moves to the extremes, players will have to spend food or kill tribes. Resolve only the effect it finishes on, and if it finishes below this white line, resolve it and return it above the line. Then resolve the card's text event. Some of these are benefits which all players can gain based on how they qualify, while some are competitive objectives enjoyed only by the player leading in a certain category. The card will tell you whether ties are friendly, or whether you need to be strictly leading to claim the benefit. Step C is intermediate scoring. All players score points based on which of these 9 standard objectives is present for the current era. Here, for example, it's 5 points per step on the construction track, meaning the blue progress track, and there's one of these chits for each of the 5 progress tracks. For evolution, score the points for each feature marker in your console. Population scores the points for every tribe you have on the map, and expansion scores for every territory where you have at least 1 tribe. Finally, for prosperity, score for each active diamond in your console. That means 1 for each filled column of food, 1 for each filled column of money, any revealed underbuilt settlements, and any icon on a stored goods space which has at least 1 stored good both above and below it. Here I'd score 11 prosperity. After scoring this era's objective, discard the token and give the first player for the next era to whoever scored the most points on that objective. Ties broken by whoever was nearest clockwise from the current first player. Finally, it's the income phase. All players gain income from all of their income chips. All players score their statues. Multiply your position on the favour track by the number of statues you've built. Then clean up by returning all hunting tokens to the supply and refilling empty columns in your reset grid. After 4 eras, the game is over and you'll add up final scores. Score all 9 basic categories using the score chips as placed in setup. Then score your consoles, which is all the points for chips and cards in the active stages of your partition, plus endgame points on any cards that yield them. Remember to count your starting income chip in stage 4 if you activated it. This right here is an 89-point partition. The player with the highest score wins. If tied, whoever completed the most module upgrades during the game breaks the tie, and if still tied, whoever is earliest in final turn order, as determined when this changed hands in Era 4, is the winner. And that's how to play Civolution.
Thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let me know and share this video if you enjoyed, and hopefully you have a wonderful day. See you next time!